Welcome to Wonderful Wednesdays. I'm here with Zoe Roberts, who serves on the county board. So, what are some of the challenges or some of the joys that have you've encountered in on serving the board?
Well, I mean, I think the challenge is when you first get on the board, you have to learn the position just like any other position.
Right.
But there's a lot more to learn because you have all of the elected interactions with the public, and then you also have um, the interactions and the structure within within the county organization itself, and you have to learn how to push legislation through and who to go to for this and who to go to for that question, right? So you have to learn all of that, and that's really kind of, I would say that was really my first kind of 4 months of being on county board. And then as far as like an ongoing thing, like one of the things that I joke around about is that a lot of people like to say politics is boring, right? That it's not interesting. But so far, since I've been on county board, I've been through, a pandemic and a tornado. So it's been interesting. I joked about, what's next, a plague of locusts or something.
Hopefully not. Well, when we first started talking about doing this interview, you talked about wanting to represent not only um, basically every person you wanted to represent while you're on the board. What are some of the things that made you want to be in government?
Uh, so it's my story goes back only a couple of years. It wasn't something that was, a major goal for me coming out of college or anything like that. What happened was I got recruited into it. I went out and I canvassed for Jeff Smith and Jody Emerson. So, and as far as really kind of what made me want to get into it is just kind of like an interesting learning curve. It just started interesting me the more I learned about it. So I just found that it was interesting, and I like learning. So that was my approach to it, and that's why I got into it, I guess.
What are you most excited about as far as what kind of work that interests you on the board itself? Some people, go after environmental projects and things like that. What is it that excites you?
I like working on the equality and uh, inclusivity types of things. That's where I get my roots in activism, and it's really kind of like what drives my policy decisions when I'm writing policy. That's where I tend to try to be. Um, as far as something that I don't like as well, I mean, I like the budget, but I don't like the budget because people get weird when it comes to, looking at the county's finances, and there's a lot to understand. It's a very complex picture.
Mhm.
So that part can be hard to explain to, the people in the general public.
Sure,
So,
sure. What is some of the policy that you've dealt with around equality or inclusivity so far?
okay. I passed a revised housing ordinance for Eau Claire County here, whereby we added to the list of protected statuses, we added age, gender identity, gender expression, and veteran status. And then passed a resolution asking Governor Evers and the Wisconsin State Legislature to act on behalf of protecting refugee citizens for the state of Wisconsin.
That's right, that's right. And that was right before the pandemic that happened, or right at the beginning. Yeah,
Right at the beginning of it, I think.
right. So can you explain a little bit more about what the housing one involves, or?
Well, the housing one's an ordinance. So it's basically the rules that people have to follow when they're selling or renting houses. Um, these people can't be discriminated against now. It's an anti-discrimination feature. So.
And it's for the county of Eau Claire then.
The county.
And
Yep.
does, I guess since it's the county, the city doesn't have to do it because it is anybody within the county, right?
That's the way I understand it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works, but in it, is this something that you're looking to happen on a state level, you think, or is this something that's happening in other counties in Wisconsin, or?
Well, so really, when we look at equality, there are lots of statewide things that we can do and work on. But things like this for, accommodation and housing and employment, you just saw the Supreme Court decision not long ago about transgender people not being able to be discriminated against in the workplace.
Mhm.
Um, you're really looking at national things. So there's this thing out there called the Equality Act at the national level that would take care of much of these types of things nationally, and that's really the way to go. We can do it county by county. It's just is a lot harder to get there.
Right, right. And given concerns about equality on a national level, I'm sure that that is a priority perhaps for those that care
Yep,
about that on a local level.
yep, it is. If you so okay, we've got our own little protected bubble now for Eau Claire County with housing, right? But what happens if somebody moves from Eau Claire to even Chippewa Falls? The rules aren't the same. So within our little bubble, we're protected, but because that other, these other counties that are around us maybe haven't done this and taken the same measure, different rules and different laws apply. So the way to do it is at the state and at the federal level long term. It's a hard fight, but it is the right thing to do for people.
Right, right. Do you hear stories about, I guess, creating this ordinance? Did you hear stories about discrimination in Eau Claire County for these identities?
No, really what drove the ordinance revisions was research based off of homelessness.
Okay,
All three of those groups have high homelessness rates.
okay. What are some of the big, I guess, focuses in the coming year for the county that you're aware of as far as, I mean, obviously, I'm sure the pandemic kind of shifted some priorities, but what are some of the focuses?
Well, I think that one of the big focuses is obviously the budget, and really that's what most of October and November within the county board structure is dealing with, is just mainly the budget. So that's going to be the focus of really the next 2 months.
So when you were a small Zoe Roberts, what what were some of the things that really inspired you to become the person that you are? You know, I mean, you care about people, you are a leader. You know, what brought you to the here and now?
What brought me to the here now? Well, I told a little bit of the story earlier, but as far as I guess I've always liked being somebody out in front and leading rather than just following. I don't know the exact justification why or how to state it maybe without sounding like some pompous jerk, but I like to lead. That's one thing about me. I think that the other thing uh, that brought me into this was the fact that we need diverse voices within county board structures, within city councils, state assemblies, state senates, and so forth. Coming from the LGBTQ community, it's estimated that we should have roughly 23,000 representatives nationwide. We have about 860, 870-ish right now. And when you don't have a voice, you're left out. And it becomes very easy to write legislation and things that aren't friendly to, minority and marginalized groups then.
The first time I heard you speak was at a rally about children and migrant families, and you were specifically talking about a minority transgender person who I believe was killed. And if maybe I have
Her
to
name was
go ahead.
her name was Joanna Medina Leon, and she was an immigrant. My speech was essentially a eulogy to her. Um, Essentially, her story goes: she came from El Salvador as a transgender woman, seeking asylum because in El Salvador she can't work even though she's a trained nurse. They locked her up. She got really really sick. She asked for the supplies to treat her fluids and stuff so that she could even make her own, and they didn't accommodate her. And as she got sicker and sicker, right before, yeah, literally as she was on her deathbed, they released her. And within a very short period of time afterwards, she died
Mm,
in a hospital.
wow. And this was in the past couple of years, or that this happened, or yeah,
Last 2 years.
last 2 years. I wonder what it's been like in Eau Claire as far as it being a more welcoming city for leadership. It seems like there has been encouragement for at least some diverse leadership, but I wonder how long have you lived in Eau Claire itself? Or
I've lived in Eau Claire since 2001.
okay, so you've got a good sense.
Since 2001.
Yeah, you've got a good sense of the city. Has it opened up more over the past years, or
Well, really, I mean, I grew up in the area, so the greater area. Eau Claire, when I was growing up, downtown Eau Claire was a pit. It was a pit, literally. Um, we didn't go there. There was nothing there.
right?
So through the years, Eau Claire has kind of evolved, and the downtown started coming back. With the revival of kind of the art scene and realizing that we had to make changes to how we operated after Uniroyal. So Eau Claire has become politically much more liberal during that same time frame. Um, I used to, as a kid, as like a 16-year-old kid, I'd be down in La Crosse a lot rather than Eau Claire because La Crosse was a lot more liberal at the time than Eau Claire was. And I think those roles might have actually kind of changed now.
Hmm.
So, but I mean, I'm just going to qualify this for you. I'm older than people think I am. I'm 49 tomorrow. So,
Okay. Well, I wonder what are some of the things that you would tell people who have not seen themselves in positions of leadership because of their identity or because of who they are? What would you say to encourage those folks as far as considering leadership?
I think that people, so it's called imposter syndrome. Start getting into a leadership role when you're from a marginalized group of people. Battle through it. It's not as bad as you think, and people will work with you, and people will help you along, and they want to see you succeed because they know that your voice is valuable. Um, I've been through imposter syndrome going, God, do I really belong here? Is this something that I should be doing? But the fact of the matter is that if I'm not doing it, again, we lose another voice. And is that something that we can really afford?
So, what are some of the values that you think are really important in communities or in government? You know, what, especially in the current environment where there's a lot of just hostility back and forth? What do you think are some of the important values?
Important values, I think. So I think that the most important thing that I could tell somebody that's going to potentially get into politics is be genuine to yourself. Don't sell out to the corporate interests. Don't compromise who you are in order to do it, because as the more compromises you make with kind of, making policy things that are less than what you would ever want, like substantially less, there's always negotiation in some of these things, but there's room for negotiation, and then there's the point where it turns into something that's just like it's not worth pursuing. So if you fit in, in like the good side, do it, but stay true to yourself, stay true to your causes and who you are. That's my best advice.
What are some areas where Eau Claire as a city and Eau Claire as a county could grow to be, I don't know, more welcoming, more inclusive, more diverse? What are some of the areas that you can identify?
Well, I mean, I think, you look around, say the city council, the county board, the school board, we still need more diverse voices. We need younger voices, especially on county board. Our county board is aging, and we need younger people to step up and lead. And I think that would be a great area of improvement for us. Along with that, obviously, typically when you get a younger group of people together, the policy goals become more progressive.
Mm-hmm.
And since I'm a progressive, I would probably love that, but that's just me. So,
anything else that stands out to you that you'd like to share with the public or anything?
oh wow. I won't lie. Well, there's one thing. I just know that if you're going to get into politics, it is a surprising amount of work. Even though it's the public thinks that you don't do anything, it's a substantial amount of work behind the scenes in order to get to the point where you're on county board and you're prepared to make statements and make arguments for or against something. It's not just up and go usually. There is preparation and a lot of thought and a lot of deep thinking that goes into some of these things, especially as you're drafting legislation. That's an important consideration, because the research behind it can take hours, and especially if you're like, a local official here in Eau Claire, you don't have a staff working for you to help you do that.
Right.
So you're doing it on your own. So it can be a little time demanding. The reward comes in when you pass something and you make a good argument and you do something that's good for the community. And that's really what should drive you.
Ready? Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard nights. If you cannot speak like angels, if you cannot speak for thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way. On the road from greed to giving, love will guide us through the dark nights. Love will guide us through the dark night.